The Disaster Relief Fund was created a number of years ago, I believe within our General Conference Missions Ministry, as a way of receiving and distributing funds for natural disasters that had occurred elsewhere in the world. I believe that it may have been an earthquake in Mexico that led to the creation of the Disaster Relief Fund in the beginning. Over the years, those funds have been used and managed by the director of the General Conference Missions Ministry to help our brothers and sisters around the world as needs arose. In the time since then, as disasters have occurred within the United States, that fund began to be used in order to meet those needs as well. I remember when the tornado hit Joplin, Missouri, and Arkansas and other places where there have been tornadoes and floods of one kind or another. Then people have responded throughout the General Conference by giving monies to the Disaster Relief Fund, which were then in turn used to help the people in need. When it became apparent that Hurricane Harvey was going to hit somewhere in Texas, I began tweeting to the members of the General Conference that we needed to begin praying for our people in those areas, because we have numerous people right along the coast and in the Rio Grande Valley, and I was concerned about what may happen to them as a result of Hurricane Harvey. Almost immediately, funds began to be donated to the Disaster Relief Fund. The hurricane came ashore in the last Friday night and Sabbath of August. People were already beginning to send donations, and then of course Hurricane Harvey went up the coast and then just stopped over Houston, creating all sorts of damage, whether wind damage, but largely flood damage as a result of the surges of stormwater into the community. And as people were giving money through the Disaster Relief Fund, it just so happened that Executive Director Jody McCoy and I were scheduled to be in Denver, and we met there with the current General Conference Missions Ministry Director, Brian Cleaton, to decide how we might best use the Disaster Relief Fund to help those in need. We quickly realized that there was no way that we in Denver could assess the legitimate needs of the people or decide wisely how to distribute those funds. And so we contacted Southwest District Superintendent Chip Hines, and he quickly organized disaster area relief teams in the affected areas. And those teams on site and their leadership, the area representatives for those two areas, Corpus Christi and Houston, along with the pastors in those areas, representatives of the pastors group in Houston, they then became our eyes and our ears and our hands and our feet in the affected area. And we began moving monies from the Disaster Relief Fund to those areas. And of course, right upon the heels of Hurricane Harvey, there was Hurricane Irma threatening Florida and devastating some of the island countries that it crossed on its way west. And in the middle of all of that, the earthquake near Mexico City. And so we began working through the superintendents. Southeast District Superintendent Steve Crow began mobilizing the pastors of the congregations in Florida. Brian Cleaton, through his contacts with the global church, began contacting leaders of the islands to see what help they might need. And then, of course, working with the president and other leaders in the Mexican Conference of the Church of God Seventh Day, we made arrangements to send disaster relief funds to all of those locations. We are dedicated to doing two things. First, to honoring the wishes of our donors, and second, to getting that money to the people in need as quickly as possible. It doesn't do anybody any good sitting in a bank account somewhere. So the best thing that people can do, the most useful thing that people can do if they are just going to give money towards a need, is to make their donation to the Disaster Relief Fund without any specific designation of where or how they want it used. And just to trust the leadership, the director of the General Conference Missions Ministry, the executive director, and myself, to make those decisions in cooperation with the leaders on site of the various natural disasters that may take place. If they designate it for something specific, then we have to use it for that. And sometimes the purpose for which money is given is no longer there, and then the money just sits there. We can't use it for something else, but we can't use it for what it was intended for because the need no longer exists. So, if people want to free us up in order to be able to have that money to use in different places, because natural disasters will always continue to occur, then they can give to the Disaster Relief Fund without specifying some specific place. I want to tell you about Homestead, Florida. The very first news reports and reports from Superintendent Steve Crome was that the city of Homestead was completely underwater as Hurricane Irma was making its way north up Florida. And we were frightened for our people there because we have a congregation in Homestead. And I have not yet seen the pictures, but I am told that as the storm passed and the people returned, they went to see how their church building had fared, and they found that their church building was basically an island surrounded by water. When the building was built, they had to raise the ground about a foot or two in order to establish the foundation. And it turns out that it was just high enough that the floodwaters did not get into the church. The people had to take a boat in order to get back into their building, but the building was not flooded. I think that's mostly a miracle.